Hello, hello. Heather Jean here. Great to see you. Thank you for joining us. This is Confidence with Coffee. And this is a segment where we talk about our latest podcast guest and episode and the key takeaways or reflections or learnings from recording that episode. You know, I love to hear podcasts where it's about the guest. And so often the host will take over and start saying, yeah, I've got this story. And then they'll go into it. And I think, yeah, but I really wanted to hear that guest. So I try very much to make the most of the time with the guest so that the guest's story is heard. And sometimes I need to add some context around the question that I'm about to ask. But for the most part, it really is about the guest. If you haven't heard the podcast, you can search Confidence Through Cabaret anywhere you get your podcasts, and you'll find the latest episode with Julie B. Rose. More on that in a second. If you are right here on the YouTube channel, first of all, please like and subscribe. And then you would check on the Vodcast playlist and you will find this week's Vodcast, which is the video version of the podcast, again with Julie B. Rose. So Julie B. Rose is traveling Mexico in an SUV with her dog, having sold up pretty much everything and living a minimalist lifestyle. Julie is a blogger, a writer, a nomad, and at the minute is just traveling, semi-retired, and enjoying life with her dog. And, I really envy that. For me, that sounds like it takes a huge amount of courage. And what you'll find in this episode is that Julie is talking about really rejecting a lot of the programming that we are raised with. I thought that I would get married, have children, have a home, have a career. Um, and my mother's generation thought they get married, have children, and stay at home and look after the family and the household and so on. And my grandmother before that, having been raised during the wars, would have been a very different expectation again. And I think what's interesting is I'm always talking about, finding out the root cause of your beliefs that no longer serve you so that you can let them go and replace them with something more serving for you. And I love that Julie has challenged the programming and said this isn't right for me. Now I have a lot of notes and you'll see them in the show notes. If you go over to the Vodcast playlist or on the podcast, you'll see the notes of the topics that we discuss. So many topics. The one that I wanted to talk about here is around limiting beliefs and learning to live with fear. That's a huge amount of what I do in my programs, whether that's in the imposter syndrome and Beat Your Imposter program, or whether that's in the self-love and self-acceptance program, and self-love and self-acceptance for growing your business specifically. And limiting beliefs hold us all back. And what's interesting is that when we follow our programming, we are limited by other people's limiting beliefs. So, for example, the limiting beliefs that my mother had about what was possible is what was instilled and installed in my programming, and went on to form part of my own self-limiting beliefs, as well as my own experiences in life that form those self-limiting beliefs. And so, I can remember it wasn't that long ago, in the last couple of years, when someone said, why are you limited by someone else's limiting beliefs? And I thought, oh wait, my limiting beliefs aren't even mine. And so we learn to challenge them. Let's have a listen to the segment from our guest Julie B. Rose sharing about limiting beliefs.
Well, I think it kind of goes back to, you have to kind of go back a little bit to that limiting belief. And I think that limiting belief is around like, oh, it's not the right time, or something doesn't line up, or there's this or that or whatever. And then I remind myself, there is no perfect timing. You will never feel 100% ready. You will never feel like you're totally prepared. You'll never feel like there's absolutely no chance something could go wrong. You will never have like that 100%. But if you have that, if you have enough, if you have the majority and you're like, just kind of go with it. It's not a perfect time, but it's the best. It's looking pretty good right now. You just have to trust, because if you wait for the perfect time, it'll never, ever, ever come.
Okay. Yes. So right before that, we had been talking about fears and fear holding us back. And I said most people are too afraid to sell up everything and just go full nomad and minimalist and follow your desires and your passions, or go on a journey of discovery for yourself, or whatever your journey would be about. And we were talking about the fact that most of the things that we're afraid of, there's like a 1% chance that that happens, but there's a 99% chance that that doesn't happen. But our limiting beliefs make it very strong arguments. And I love what Julie's talking about, that there is no perfect timing. There will always be something in the way. There will always be the wrong energy or the wrong whatever it is. It's funny because I was listening the other night to an old Zig Ziglar video. Not sure what year it would have been out, but I'm going to guess in the 90s or early 2000s. And if you're not familiar with Zig Ziglar's work, it's very worthwhile, especially on the sales front. But he's talking about, okay, I'm gonna do the thing. I'm gonna start my business, or I'm gonna, follow my passions. But first of all, I'm just gonna wait until the children are out of school for the summer, because there's a long summer break, and that's a good time to start it. Right now, I've got a lot to deal with the children being in school. And then the children get out of school, and you say, oh, well, it's beautiful weather and it's sunshine, and the children are out of school. And so I'm going to, wait until they go back to school. And then they go back to school, and there's a lot of homework, and there's things that to help your children with, or to organize and recover from the summer in the household, or to get back on track with your work. And so, but I'm going to wait until everything's settled down a little bit. And so it goes on, and then it's the children's soccer team is doing well, and so I'm going to get more involved in that and spend more time attending those games. And then but don't worry, I'll do it before Christmas. And then it's, oh well, we're nearly at Christmas, and so then there's that. So I'll wait until after Christmas. And then January, everybody's recovering from Christmas, so that's not a good time. But don't worry, because I'm going to wait until the spring. And then in the spring it becomes Easter, and then in the and so it goes on, and all of a sudden it's, I'm gonna follow my dreams. I'm gonna start my business, or whatever it is that you wanted to do, or I'm gonna try this new thing out. And all of a sudden it's a year gone by. And the thing is, time passes whether we do it or not. So if you wanted to do, I don't know, let's say challenge yourself to a new habit, then the standard rule of thumb would be to try and do it for 28 days, and so at least 21 days. And some would say longer, but we'll go with kind of the average time that it takes to create a new habit. And when we want to change our habits, we don't just stop our habit; we need to replace that with a more healthy habit. And so and you'll find other videos on the playlists around this. But when we replace our habits, then it's going to take 28 days at least to embed, or at least to start to embed. And so those 28 days or 21 days, or however long you commit to it for, they will pass whether you do those things or not. And right now I'm doing a 252-day confidence challenge, where I'm watching a short video clip each day, which is where I found the Zig Ziglar video, and about taking action. And I'm also doing a 21-day evening meditation challenge for myself, and I'm following Deepak Chopra, who, because when I'm struggling with my meditation practice, I always go back to guided meditation, and I enjoy his work. So, and you can check out any of those right here on YouTube, or on the internet anywhere. But that 21 days is going to pass whether I do the meditation or not, and the 252 days is definitely going to pass. And all of a sudden it's going to be next January, and I'm going to be thinking, I could have done that. Now that applies to anything, but when we come back to limiting beliefs and there not being a perfect time, when you combine that with the fact that a lot of our limiting beliefs are around fear of trying something else or breaking that mold, then, you really need to lean into, what is that fear about? And so if you've listened to the Vodcast or podcast before, you'll be aware that I like to invite my guests to create kind of a stage presence, a performance using a prop and what their stage names are. And I always explain why I'm asking them to do that, because that gives us a voice to being able to say I'm fierce and I'm deserving and I'm unapologetic and I take up space and I'm strong. But there's also that inner critic that says, yeah, you can't do this. Who are you to do this? Or whatever your inner critic talks about. I talk about the imposter voice. And we talk about naming that imposter voice. And we do a lot of work on the Beat Your Imposter program, which you'll find more information about on confidencethroughcabaret.com. But the whole kind of voice, naming that and being able to talk to it and saying, what is it that you're fearing, or what is it that you're thinking might happen, or what is it that you're protecting me from? And we always start from a space of assuming that the intentions are innocent or benign. So that voice of fear can very often be, that it's there to warn you, which is great in our evolution. But I like to separate out the imposter voice from the voice of fear and give our voice of fear a name as well. Because then we can talk to that and say, all right, fear, whatever you've named it, what is it that you're trying to warn me about? What is it that I am truly afraid of? What if that happened? And you can do this in steps. You can break down, what is it that I'm fearing? What might happen if I start a business, quit my job, change my job, any number of things. And I do this with my coaching clients as well. I'll say to them, I did this exercise actually last week with a coaching client who wanted to change jobs, but was too afraid to, in case it was, it's the devil, and it's, what if the new job is worse? Well, what if it's not? So let's look at, what are you fearing? And you really just writing a list of what is it that you're fearing, and then bottoming that out and looking at, what if that happened? What if the worst one of those fears happened? What would you do? How would you handle it? And what would that mean? And, all of the kind of angles of it. When you get to that point, most of the time, it's not that bad. So right now I'm facing something with needing to get my business records in order for income tax season, and I'm thinking, oh, I don't want to look at those. But when I look at, what is it that I'm fearing, it's just that I'm fearing that, where is all the stuff? I didn't keep the records as straight as I promised myself I would this time last year. I'm fearing, what's my accountant going to think? I'm fearing all kinds of different things about that. But what's the worst case scenario in that? Now, that's a fairly simple one compared to quitting your job and starting a business, or taking the plunge and starting a family, or, selling up your things and going traveling and following your desires. So when we do that, then we can inoculate against a lot of the things that we're fearing. And when we then start to think about, okay, what's the worst one? What would happen? If that happened, I don't know what I would do. Then we can look at our resources and what would be possible, different options. Or we can decide, okay, well, if that happens, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be able to deal with it. So we set that aside. And then, as Julie says, in the podcast or vodcast, about 1% of the time that happens. So if that does happen, then we'll deal with that. And as long as we're going to be okay, as long as it's not life threatening, then it's worth taking that chance if it's something that you feel very strongly about. And interestingly enough, most of the time it doesn't happen. And so our limiting beliefs are stopping us from really bottoming out our fears, from changing some of the beliefs that hold us back. But it also stops us from living the dreams, the passions, the desires, from following our really deep rooted inner knowing. So try doing that. But most importantly, try thinking about fear as excitement. It's the same feeling in your body. Try thinking about fear as, I'm excited that this will, even like for me with this tax thing, I'm going to be thinking, I'm excited that it will soon be over, and I'm channeling that energy into, this time next week, it will be behind me, and it will be over, whatever the outcome is. And so I will do that work this evening around what is it that I'm fearing, and what is it that's holding me back from doing what I have to do, because taxes is a certainty. And so I will do that work. And so tomorrow I will have a clear space to be able to just fully immerse myself and get it done. Because time is going to pass either way. It's that, that the deadline is coming one way or another. So learning to live with fear, learning to channel what you can into excitement, learning to make fear your friend and be able to talk to it and say, what is it that I'm really fearing? A lot of the time, it's like being on the top of a roller coaster. And I talk about this a lot. There's fear and excitement all at the same time, but whatever happens, you're going down, or you're going to do the loop, or whatever it is. And in that moment, there is so much freedom. So much freedom. Think about the things that you have faced where you feared it and afterwards you loved it. Going on stage was a big one for me. What am I doing going on stage? Who am I to go on stage? All those voices in my head. And then this is reality. I can't believe I can't, I can't manage this fear. I don't know how to cope with this feeling. It's overwhelming, but channeling that into excitement and then doing it. And I still remember my first time. I had all kinds of fears around costume malfunctions. I had to take a onesie off over a pair of very high heels, and it was a whole thing. Um, and I was afraid of not hitting the right cues. I was afraid of, falling, and all kinds of things. And none of it happened. But you know why? Because I didn't focus on falling, because I didn't focus on the costume malfunctions, because I focused on the excitement and the adrenaline, and I did it. And then afterwards, and this happens almost every time, people say, I want to do it again, like now. It was so much fun. And it's about leaning into those moments and finding the thrill that lies somewhere in that fear. Even if it's just the thrill that it will be finished and it will be behind you, because it will. Please join me on confidencethroughcabaret.com. We have a new masterclass every month and or workshop every month to help you uplift your confidence in business, in personal, or in stage life, whatever your stage is, whether that's on social medias, on your company Zoom, or on an actual stage. Check out Confidence Through Cabaret. I hang out in the Facebook community a lot, like throughout every single day. So you can find me in there. You can connect there. I offer one-to-one coaching. I offer group programs on imposter syndrome, as well as in loving the skin that you're in, feeling good in your body, self-love and self-acceptance to grow your business, and all kinds of other programs coming up, retreats coming up later in 2022, which I'm so excited about. So do get in touch on Confidence Through Cabaret or Heather Jean. I'm Confidence Through Cabaret on all of the socials except for Twitter, where we are at YBYWYS, or I'm on Clubhouse at Heather YBYWYS. You will find all of those connections and links in the show notes. Those 6 little letters stand for it is your body, and it is your world, and it's your stage. Take up space. Enjoy. Thank you for joining. Like and subscribe. See you again. Bye.